to the Coach Dave Academy YouTube channel. I'm Bart Horsten, and I'm going to take you for a track guide today around Oulton Park and the BMW M4 GT3. See you after the hot lap. Alright, so heading down the start-finish straight, it's not very long at Oulton. Generally you want to stay on the left-hand side of the road a bit more just to shorten the distance. There's not really much point running out to the right, so just keeping that in mind. And also being in a position where you can be dead straight with the white line, because you see it's curving all the way around on the main straight on the left-hand side. We want to be as far left as possible before we go into the first corner, which is called Old Hall. It's quite a high-speed corner, so you see there I'm dead straight. And that starts from here, because if we were right on the white line on the left, not only are we kind of tightening up the car and making, putting unnecessary load on the tires, we're also not got the right angle. So here we're straight over this bit, and then we're just being a straight line, a little bit of a left turn there. Now we can settle, be dead straight before we break into Old Hall. Here you would need to look in really, really early, which is why it's important to be dead straight. This is a third gear corner in this car. It's a high-speed corner, and you want to be carrying good minimum. The exit's relatively important, but the main thing is that you want that minimum speed to be up. So you can see here, and it's quite a late apex as well. So that's why we're going to be looking quite far into the corner, because the true apex of the corner is kind of hidden by that barrier on the inside. If we can see over here, there's a green barrier, green and white little bit here where the barrier is ending. So it's important to look all the way in. So I generally use this kind of point where the curves meet. So if we go out to the chase cam, the reverse chase cam, you can see here there's a bit of a point on the track here where basically the corner of the curb, that's kind of what I use there, right in the middle of it there. So aiming for that point and using all of the inside curve as well. It's super flat and has as much grip as the track at Oulton. There's a lot of curbs like these, and I've never managed to get an off track from the inside, so it's not really something you got to worry about. So you need to make sure you're all the way to the inside here. Generally, the trap is people turn a bit early and get caught a bit early into here. So if you're a little bit later on the brakes, you can sometimes get rewarded. Obviously, like I said, you want to keep that minimum speed up and carrying good speed through the corner. So changing down fourth, third, and delaying that gear change as well will help the car turn. And we've got quite actually a straight-ish angle onto the exit. You don't really want to dive in super early and stay in the camber, because you'll be lifted out on the exit here when the rise after the apex. So we go through here, and then we can also, this is really tricky for off tracks, this exit as well. So that's why it's really important on the way in we don't go in too early, because you'll 100% go off track. There's no real punishment in terms of lap time. You won't spin on this Astro. You can probably run 2 car widths out and be safe, but you will get an off track if you go, I'd say, maybe a wheel width more than this, and you'll get an off track. So this is pretty much the limit on this lap here. See, I've got, if we go to chase cam, or even if we go to, well, it's a bit too high, the chopper cam, you can see here, that's the limit there. I say if you go one more wheel width, you'll find yourself getting off track. But it isn't dangerous, and sometimes in the first half of the race, you can brave it around the outside or in general because there is a lot of grip there. Just watch out, because once you reach this bit here where that Astro bit ends, you are on true grass and you will just spin into a wall. So be careful of that. But yeah, like I said, get a good exit out of there. It's important just basically making sure you hit that apex point correctly, because that will stop you from getting this off track here and will help you carry speed into the corner as well. Hey, going along here now, we're in fourth gear. And then it's all flat, that kink's easy, but again, making sure positioning wise we're not over too early, just being patient, being smooth with the steering. You can see my steering wheel in the bottom right, and the telemetry is quite stable, and being careful here not to drop a wheel on the right. Really easy to do in the left-hand drive cars. So just making sure we're all the way over to the right, but we're not obviously off the track. I've done it more times than I can remember, so be careful with that. Okay, so again, in a straight line, and there's a little bump here into the entry to Cascades, which is a super fast corner with huge banking. And so your braking point pretty much is this dip in the road here. So being aware of that, and also being aware it's going to upset the car a little bit if you're not dead straight. So you can see it's not a heavy brake, and that's going to help you through the corner pretty much. If you brake too much, you'll overslow the car. You'll be in too tight, and you won't be able to get on throttle because you'll just be into the camber too early. Unlike Old Hall, the previous corner, you can go in a little bit earlier because of this camber here. You can see it gives way, not at this point, but in this point, and you can get all over this inside curb again, right up to the inside where the grass is. Curb super flat, grippy. Get on it, use all of it, and then you stay hooked in that camber, and that's when I pick up the throttle. You can see I have quite an aggressive throttle pickup here because we want to try and just grab onto the car once it's in that camber. It's just waiting for that point, and until that point, you need to be trailing the brake in. So it's trailing on the brake until we can commit to full throttle, which is important in general in these cars on iRacing. But you can see it, especially on a corner like this, where you need to keep the weight on the nose and then just full attack on the exit. And for the exit here, you want to exit just after this curb. I look at this gap between this tiny bit of tarmac you can see coming up. If we go to the camera and get a better view, so we see this, we've got this little gap here where there's AstroTurf, about car length and a half between the end of that curb and the start of that little strip of tarmac, and that's where you want to meet the outside. The off tracks here really bad. This is the easiest place on the track, in my opinion, to get off track. So be super careful with that. So not getting on throttle too early. Again, that's why it's important to trail brake all the way in till you commit to throttle, because then you won't. Then you'll be in the camber and you'll be tight, and you'll be able to get a good exit while not running out too wide and too early, because you will just get an off track here if you're on that Astro at all before the curb, or if you put more than a wheel over that curb. So that's why it's important to exit out late. Because say we were this wide, about this far back on the exit, we're going to end up even wider further down, and we're going to get an off track. So. And we haven't got too many of those to play with in the longer races, especially. So just being careful of that. So now the exit's quite important out of there, because we're going down this one of the longest straights on the track into Island Bend, which is the fastest corner on the track, or true corner. And this is a lift in these cars. I believe you can take it flat in quali in the right conditions. However, you have got an issue there where you'll be right on the edge of the right hand side of the track, and then your the next corner coming up called Shell Oil's hairpin will be really bad, and it's much more important for us here to be over to the left as much as possible. So it's one of those corners that's always a balancing act, because obviously the faster the less you have to lift through Island, is quicker, but at the same time you need to be back to the left. So it's all about balancing that as much as you can and trying to get the car over in a really short time back to the left as much as possible, and then actually getting it dead straight as well. So it's a really challenging bit of circuit, this. Okay, so my reference is the same as in real life, pretty much into here. You've got this little cut through where they always put cones up for the shorter Island track, and you turn in just before the end of this little tarmac strip here, and you're always aiming for somewhere along the apex curb coming up but further down it, not the start of it. I'll give you an idea of where. So about here, this point here, the second half of this curb. So you can see into there, the end of that red and white curb on the left. That's kind of where you want to be aiming for, because if you go for the start of it, you'll end up too wide. Also, you do want to try and hit this curb in the GT cars, because it does help hook it round a bit. So yeah, it's just, you can see on my telemetry in the bottom right, it's flat, and then just lift to bring the nose in, and then gain back on throttle once we hit that inside curve. Going back to throttle once we hit the inside curb, because the car grips up. There's actually a little bit of camber as well at this point in the corner. It will help the car grip up, stabilize, and then pushing out to the exit. See, we only go to mid-track here, so I can get it back fully left on this lap. Like I said, you can. There's also a way of taking this section where you end up wider to the right and probably struggle more here, but it's where you want to gain and lose time. So yeah, just think about that in a racing scenario perhaps as well. So yeah, going to here, try to get as far back left as possible. It's all about, like I said, the exit of Island, the previous corner into here. And then we got, this is Shell Oils, and this is a really challenging corner, really long banked hairpin. So we're going to really make sure here we don't end up having our minimum speed too early. That's really important, because a lot of people go in and see a hairpin, oh, I need to slam on the brakes. It's banked, and it has a lot of camber, so you can carry a lot more speed than you think. And you don't want to stop at the bottom here, so you don't want to be at the bottom of the curb here. You want to see around here is where you actually want to apex, let's say. Yeah, so it's quite important. Hit the brakes really hard, hold peak pressure, stay in a straight line, don't get sucked into the inside, run up C to mid-track where this line is separating the two bits of tarmac in the middle. Sit up here, and then just brake. We're trying to stop it as much as possible. And then as soon as we feel like the car's coming back down, as we're holding the brake and we're helping the nose get into the corner, we can then pick up the throttle once you feel it grip into the camber. Into hairpins, it's generally a fact that you don't really want much of a coasting or a waiting phase. You just really want to be deep in on the entry and quick onto throttle for most hairpins. So that's the same case here, even though it's banked, it's quite a long hairpin. We want to make it so we don't end up having a waiting phase in the middle where we're doing nothing with the car. So that's why you get rewarded for, braking relatively late, not silly late, but relatively late, so that you're then forced, to hold the brake far into the corner, which means we apex late here at the end of the inside curb, which means our throttle pickup's late, which means we don't run out early and we don't have a waiting phase. So that's the general thing for that corner is, yeah, you just got to make sure you're aiming for that high bit of tarmac first, and then aiming and looking all the way around to see the bottom of that inside curve as well. And then as soon as you see that bottom, you can pretty much or get into the bottom of the camber, you can tap the throttle really aggressively, and then ride out to that exit curve. You can use all the exit curves. Just be careful when you clip the grass after it ends. Okay, now to the first chicane, so we'll call it Fulston's. This is a tricky chicane, and it's quite quick, actually, quicker than a lot of people think. So you can use a lot of this left curb here, a lot, all up to the tyre barrier, basically, in a GT car like this, especially the BMW, which is a big car and can use curbs well. So you'll see in the bottom right here, it's only one brake we have. We don't have two brakes for this chicane. It's just one corner. And that's kind of the first thing I want to get out of the way. It's a right-hand corner. Okay, so you're opening up the entry on the left, but don't think, oh, it's a left-hander, oh, it's a right-hander. No, it's just a right-hand corner. I know, so just simplify that first. So it's a right-hand corner, medium speed, second gear. We're just trying to get as left far as possible when we're setting up for it. So we're on the right-hand side into here, flat out, and we're turning still flat out. And then as soon as we're straight and on the start of this curve, we're going to hit the brakes when we come alongside the tyre barrier. So yeah, you can see when I hit the inside curve here, start hitting the brakes, and you trail all the way in. So braking alongside, the main thing is just opening it up. Like I said, it's a right-hand corner. The main thing is to make sure you're always to the left and that your braking zone is straight. Those are probably the two things to focus on here. Make sure you use all the track on the entry and straight on the brakes, okay? And those two things will allow you to then roll the speed and be late into this corner. If you brake too early, you can't turn because then you'll hit the inside tire bundle and you'll damage your car. So you've got to make sure, you get it all the way left. You open it up by first of all being, like I said, following the white line on the right. Then we go into here, flat out. Okay, I'm straight now. I'm now gonna brake. Please cut the bit before where I said braking. I was waiting for the telemetry and it wasn't working because I wasn't playing. So please cut that other bit. I was thinking I was quite late braking zone. Okay, so staying to the right, holding the white line, turn to the left in a straight line, hit the brakes, down change into third, and then down change into second as we're going over this curb. This curb will have a little bit of effect on the amount of grip you have through the braking zone, not as much as you actually think. The main thing, like I said, just be straight. Just be straight when we hit the brakes here. I know it looks like, again, it looks like a corner. You got to try and trick your brain here and basically go, okay, I'm going to a right-hand corner. Kink left just for the start of the braking zone. Hit the brakes straight into third. Second. Start rolling out of the brake a little bit just as we're coming through this bit, this right-hand part of the corner. And then, again, a really quick throttle pickup in this car with the TC and all the weight on the rear axle. Straight line here. So be really careful here, again, for off tracks, because if you run on the grass at all before this curb or wheel off, you will get an off track. It's really aggressive there with the off tracks it gives. So be super careful. This bit's not really a corner. This isn't really an issue. Even if you run out a bit harder, the traction control in these cars, just make sure you don't put on too much locker early when you're turning left here, because then you'll stall the car's exit a bit. Just make sure you use all the exit. Okay. So we stay on the right-hand side here just to stay straight for a little bit. Wait over the rise, and we get all the way over to the left. Straight line, braking here at the 100-meter board pretty much. Just after the 100-meter board, braking fourth down to second. This first bit of the chicane, so this is the Knickerbrook chicane, or second chicane. So it's a right, left, right. And the main thing with this whole section is, again, trying to simplify it and not get too confused by, oh, I've got to stop and turn for right hand and then left and right. The main thing is you want the exit at the last right, and you want to have your minimum speed, so your slowest point in the section in the left. So if you treat it like, oh, it's one longer corner and I've got to stop for the left, I've got to get the exit at the right, and this is kind of the entry phase, then it kind of starts to make a little bit more sense with how we want to drive it. So for the first bit, we want to roll a bit of speed. We don't actually really want to stop the car too much. It's still quite a big slowdown from where we were. Like I said, braking almost 100 meters down to second gear, but then I start rolling out of the brakes here and carrying quite a bit of speed. The main thing is that we're over to the right, not all the way here. We use all the curb up to the tire bundle, which we will at the next bit as well. But we want to not have the car all the way over to the left, because we want to be able to open this up. And again, like I said, have your slowest point here so you can open up the exit at the end. So it all starts here. It all starts here. If you brake too late, you will be out of sync for the rest of the section. So make sure we're not chasing too much time on the brakes on the entry. We roll good speed through here, not too much, just enough. So it keeps the car where we want it on the right part of the track. Positioning is super important. And then I have a quick throttle pickup just to gain a little bit of time between the two corners, and then back on the brakes, mainly to help it get turned through this left-hander. So you hit the brakes again, and you just got to make sure you hug this inside curve because it helps turn the car super well. If you miss it, you'll really feel it. Makes a big difference. And again, run up to the tire bundle on the inside. And then again, gradual throttle pickup for the exit. But now this throttle pickup makes a difference for your run out of the whole corner as well, which is why we don't want to chase too much time on the entry on this braking zone here. Because this throttle pickup is partially what's going to help us on the exit on the way out. So for this last bit, which is super important, we want to be all the way over to the left on the entry. So position is quite important, and that we can't pick up the throttle too early here and end up all the way to the right, because in any car, even a single seater, you won't get it back to the left in time if you pick the throttle up too early and go all the way out to the right here. So you need to make sure you only go out. Usually 2/3 is the reference most people use. You go to about 2/3 here, but you're looking to the left-hand side of the track for where you're trying to get to, the white line on the entry. Because we want to make sure we get over to here, so we open up this bit, because this is the exit all the way up the hill. Huge amounts of lap time here. And then just I lift out. Potentially you could brake, but for me, I was just lifting out. Lift out. You can use all this curb in this car. You can even dip the wheel over to the inside a little bit. I'll show you here. So I use all the curb. You can even run a little bit more, I would say, potentially as well. It's, for me, as long as you're carrying good minimum speed through here, that's the main thing, and you have that early throttle pickup. So as long as you've got that going on, that's really what's key for your lap time. So yeah, get that throttle pickup here as early as you can, but not too wide. So about 2/3 wide, all the way back to the left. And then I short shift as well on the lift. It'll help the car turn. So that's another bit of advice. And it'll help your throttle pickup on the exit will be able to be a lot more aggressive then, because you won't get wheel spin. So short shift with the lift should help you use more curb. And then as soon as you hit that inside curb and you feel that rotation, you can run over the exit curve here. You can see again, we've got this Astro to help us. And we can run all the way up to that greener grass. So that yellow, whitish, kind of grained bit, that's all grippy. That's as grippy as the track on here. So run over it. 100% run over it. Don't run onto the grass. Yeah, so your exit there is obviously, like I said, super important. And that short shift will help us get turned, and then we can just go full throttle on the apex, use all the track, use that extra bit of AstroTurf as well. This is all flat. That's not really a big deal. You can keep it on the left. I keep it on the left to shorten the line a bit, just to be smooth here. Now you want to be over to the right. This bit is important. Staying on the right and don't turn left too early, because it will compromise our entry into Druids. So yep, up into 5th gear, over to the left-hand side. See, we're following the white line on the left-hand side of the track here. Braking, and into 4th gear. So this corner is a really tricky one. It's a high-speed corner, Druids. And again, what's important, I feel like, here is that we don't want to have 2 stabs at the throttle. We don't want to have a waiting phase, a big coasting phase in the middle of the corner where the car's just going to push on. So what we want to do is make sure that we're pushing our entry enough that we're not compromising the exit, but at the same time, we're not having a waiting phase in more the corner. So that's kind of how we're reading, where we're braking. And for me, the braking is starting just as we get over to the left-hand side here. You can see the track straightens up. If we go to this cam here, you can see the track kind of turns a little bit on a diagonal, and then it kinks a little bit there. And then we've got this bit of straight line road before we actually go into the corner. So that's kind of where we're setting up for all the way back here. So yeah, all on the right. Turn in, avoid the curb, doesn't really make a difference. I wouldn't hit it because it probably jumps the car a little bit to the right, so you don't really need to. So staying right, now we're right on the white line, and just staying on the left-hand side of the road, braking, trying to open up the track as much as possible. And looking to the inside here. So this is a double apex corner pretty much in this car, but another way to look at it is rather than, I need to stop at this apex, you can see my throttle pickup isn't until here. So the way I really see this corner is it's one big corner. So if we go out and we see here, it's a double right, and I kind of see it as one constant curve, and this is the middle of that corner, and this is where you're being stopped for when you're on the entry, and this is where you're trying to get on throttle. So rather than trying to overslow the entry or chase too much time on the entry, trying to hit the last apex, or some people slow the car down a lot and just try to hit the last apex, you'll find you can get on throttle a lot earlier than that. So to really carry the speed through the whole section, and this is important in high-speed corners like this, with cars that have downforce like the GT3s, you want to be able to carry the speed like this through one continuous kind of radius corner. So the best way to do that is get as close as possible to the inside curb. I wouldn't really take much of it because it will bounce the car a little bit. I get right up close to it, as close as you can, which is definitely what you want to be doing. And this second point of the curb, or the end of the curb, you want to aim for on the entry here. But this is the point you want to slow it down for, is kind of the middle here. And then you want to pick up throttle for your exit. So it's earlier than you think because the car will keep turning, because this rise opens up a little bit on the exit. So, and you can have steering lock over the rise as well. It won't spit you out too badly. And you can also use all this exit curb and even the grass. It can be lenient with off tracks there as well. Even if you dip a wheel off, you won't necessarily get off track. So just keeping that in mind, you can push the exit there quite a bit. Right, so the last corner, which is Lodge. Quite a tricky corner, this. 5th gear down to 2nd gear. And for me, it's mainly you need a really good exit here, but also it's about getting in earlier than you think. There's like it's off camber and it's uphill. If you go in late, you'll never make the apex, basically. A lot of people try to, like say, like over perfect the corner, make it feel nice. It's just a bit of a messy corner, in my opinion. The braking zone is quite bumpy as well, so it's just tricky all round. So you can see I'm not on the white line here, because if you are, you're not actually straight for the entry, which again, it's one of these tracks that's quite difficult on people who don't know it, because you got to make sure you're actually straight for this bit. So you can see I'm already aiming the car to be straight with the white line when I'm turning in. I'm turning in at this, generally the references in real life, there's a marshal's post here, but you can see there's like this wide fencing on the left, and that's your turn-in point. And then what you really want to apex is the curb at the start of that little service road on the inside. So making sure you get as tight as possible, because like I said, it's an off-camber corner, and the further away you are from the inside, the more problems you're going to have with your exit and with carrying speed as well. So main thing, straight line, like I said, on prepare. Your braking reference, the only thing you've got is this turning board, and you're braking just after that in these cars. Hit the turning board, hit the brakes, straight line, down to 2nd gear. As we're turning in, again, you use the gear change to help rotate the car a bit as well. The other thing is you don't have to get the car stopped before you turn in here. You can still slow the car down up the hill. That's a big reason why we're turning in early, is it'll actually help decelerate the car if we turn in early and go up the hill and use the incline to our advantage. So yeah, I think for me, this is maybe the trickiest one, if not the trickiest corner on the track. Really aiming to, just minimum speed point, the slowest point of the corner is here, and you're braking all the way into it. So yeah, we've got straight line braking for the first phase, and like I said, you'll start turning in from that marker on the left-hand side, carry the speed up into the inside curb, and you want a really aggressive throttle pickup here, really, really aggressive. If you're slow, what will happen is all the weight will go into the rear, and the car will just kind of, it'll pick up the front over this crest, and you'll understeer massively if you're too slow on the throttle pickup. You've got to be aggressive and try and slide the rear a little bit with just like a tiny bit of wheel spin. The car will react really, really badly over here if you're slow with your throttle pickup. So that's important to note as well. Yeah, so as long as we make it, like I said, tight onto the inside here and on this inside curve, we should be able to really attack the throttle and make sure you commit 100%. You can see on my lap, I have a little bit of a weight in the second phase, but you see that first phase, I really kicked the throttle on, just as we're playing with the TC over the top of the hill. And for the exit here, you can't go past the curb in terms of lap time. That grass is not very grippy. Again, I think a bit like Druids, you can run off and not get off track. Let's say a wheel width, but it's really bad for your exit time here, and you won't really get away with it. And yeah, back to the finish line. So that is a lap of Oulton Park in the BMW M4 GT3.